Hi guys, my name's Dee, this is the Heroine's Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a book review and the book in question is Black and British African History by David Olusoga. This is a non-fiction history book which is about Black British history, obviously, and it takes the reader on a journey from Roman times up until the end of the 20th century. We meet the Afro-Romans, Black Georgians, Black Victorians, all the way up until the current generation. This book is basically a 101 about Black history, but when I say 101, don't take that in the way that it's very simplistic or brief. This book is not brief at all. It's very there's a lot in here. It's very complex, very dense, a lot of detail, but it's beautiful. This book, if anything, dispels the myth that Black British people only became significant in British history towards the end of the 20th century. That is not the case at all, and it's a myth that is around so much in the UK, and it means that we never get to see the whole array of British history, because David Olusoga pretty much declares that British history is Black history and Black history is British history. Essentially, if you're taking Black history out of British history, you aren't getting the full picture of British history. So after reading this book, I cannot look at the Victorian era, I can't look at the Georgian era the same way as I did before, because I know that that account is only one half of the story. And that is why we need to, as a country, you need to kind of step away from believing that it was like the Windrush generation and like that's when Black British history started. That's when modern Black British history started. But that's not the beginning of Black British history. And we spend some time with Afro-Romans, we spend some time with the Black Georgians, Black Victorians, and we just see how much of a cultural impact Black people had on the UK, and it's really fascinating. It's really interesting to read. One of my favorite chapters would have to be the Black Georgians, because we see such a extreme between the different Black Georgians. So you had Black Georgians who would be essentially exotic props in artwork, and that was all that they were, and domestic servants. And then you had the other extreme, which was Black British people who somehow got an education, who rose up in the higher upper echelons of society, and we see them writing books or owning shops. That extreme was really interesting to read about, and David Olusoga does a really clever thing of comparing Georgian the kind of culture in Georgian Britain to the current culture in 21st century Britain, and it's so amazing to see the similarities, especially when it looks at almost like the cult of celebrity, and how we all love to see a great figure fall in public, and our views about how there's extreme poverty but also extreme wealth. That was a really interesting thing David Olusoga did, and I was really happy to read that chapter. But this book is not a love letter to the UK or to white UK. But this book is also not an attack on white UK. I hate that whenever people bring up about the slave trade in the UK, it's always about how we abolished it, and they say, oh, we abolished slavery, and that's almost to deflect against any criticism or any further conversation we can have about the triangular slave trade. It was so I was so confused reading about that kind of era of the UK, because I was shocked to see how many people held such strong moral views against slavery. I just didn't think of the abolition of slavery as something that was really like a moral thing that happened in the UK. I guess I thought it was just like, okay, let's just abolish slavery, because that's how people bring it up. They don't bring it up in a way that we should take time to consider about the attitudes of people, about how it happened. It's only brought up to deflect against conversation, and when you're doing that, you're doing a discredit to all the people who campaigned against slavery and abolition movement, and all of that, like rich history, just gets swept away. For what reason? What I also love about this book is that it says that Black British history isn't just one type of history. So Black British history isn't just migration for like economic reasons. Black British history is also Black American history. So we see that with the Civil War, with World War II, and Black Americans coming to the UK to about the abolition movement. There's so much that combines Black history and Black British history, Black American history, and that was really fun to read. But also again, we had Africa with the whole colonization, obviously, the different communities that emerged in Africa. And I didn't know Sierra Leone we had such strong links to Sierra Leone, this country. Why is that never brought up? Why is it only mention of Morant Bay in this book? The massacre of Morant Bay in Jamaica. Why? That's just I've never heard of it in my life. This book isn't the entirety of Black British history. Obviously, David Olusoga encourages the reader to go to another book to read about Black British history, because he can't go into detail with the whole of Black British history here. He goes into enough detail that I feel satisfied to move on to the next chapter or to move on to the next time period. Some of the detail that he can't go into, it's not because he doesn't want to go into it, it's because the history is not there. So there's some gaps when it comes to the perspective of Black British history. So when it comes to women, there's not a lot of Black British female history in this book, just because it wasn't accounted for. And when Black Britons were, and when Black people coming into the UK, it was mainly men coming into the UK. So we don't get a lot of Black British like females in this book, or like their perspectives, which is frustrating. And you can tell that the author is also frustrated as well, but there's nothing we could do about it. It's basically an inevitable thing which is going to happen when it comes to this kind of those centuries of like history. We're just not going to get a complete account of stuff. So I just want to talk about the writing of this book, because while it's very informative, very clear, very great, you know, it's really good standard of writing, I love the parts when you could just tell that David Olusoga was just he was just, there's a lot of unsavory people in this book, you know what I mean? A lot of unsavory people in this book. And the way that Olusoga sometimes just talks about them, you can just tell that it's very dry humour, very sarcastic. And there were points in this book when I was just laughing because of the ridiculousness of certain people in our past. Like, it's just ridiculous, and you could tell that David Olusoga knows this is ridiculous, and he does such intellectual takedowns of these people. It's very satisfying to read, like those like little pages when he just takes down like Enoch Powell. Enoch Powell, if you don't know, is basically was a really racist MP back in the 1960s. He just takes down Enoch Powell like so well. It's just like chef's kiss. The book is really, really great. I encourage everyone, especially Black British people, to read this book. So I don't usually star books, but if I was going to star this book, it would be 5 stars. Please, not just Black British people, read this book. If you're interested in history, if you're interested in just Black people history, please just read this book, because even though it says Black and British, this history is truly global, and I feel like everyone should read it. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and please like and comment down below if you did, or if there's parts of Black British history that you are interested in, or if you have any questions, or so on and so forth. But yes, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you again soon in another video. Bye.